I've heard so many times that it's illegal to be Catholic in China, that there's an underground church in China. Yet, for my next guest, it's not so simple and not so hopeless. So to share his views on this matter and on other questions, I'm joined by Bishop Ignatius Wang. He's the retired auxiliary bishop of San Francisco. Bishop Wang, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
So maybe I kind of want to go right back to that. I don't need the whole story of your life, but did you ever think that you would be, growing up in China, that you would be a priest?
Well, when I was little child, about maybe 5 or 6 years old, the missionaries, they go to Beijing to learn Chinese. Mm-hmm. They often visit my family, have dinner with us and all that.
Okay.
And I saw them, they're so happy and so nice. Mm-hmm. And they taught me even French games. They're from...
Right.
Yes.
So these were French missionaries?
Yeah, well, from Montreal.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Canadians?
Well, Canadians. Well, then later on came the Scarborough Fathers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they visited my family just for fun. I said, well, why don't I be a priest? So much fun.
So the seed was planted when you were little, obviously.
Well, I don't know about that. But anyhow, I just wanted to be happy like they are.
Right. But you were obviously in a Catholic family.
Oh, yes, very much.
Your family was Catholic.
Well, I think we've been Catholics for 12 generations.
12 generations?
Yes.
Wow.
So especially my grandmother, always helped me and all that to grow up in the faith. So that's how it started.
And when you were growing up, so when these missionaries were coming to China and coming to your house, were you able to practice your Catholic faith publicly?
Absolutely.
So that was different than what it's like now?
Absolutely, yes. Yes. Before the Japanese War.
Okay.
Long before the communists came over.
Right.
Yes.
And were there many Chinese-born Catholic priests? Or were most of the priests missionaries?
Oh, in those days, I think I see a lot of Chinese-born priests there, I think. Uh-huh. Our pastor, 2 associates, they were born Chinese, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're from our neighborhood.
Yes.
In our street, almost the whole street are Catholics.
Right.
So we all know each other, we all knew each other. And,
right.
So
you're growing up in this Catholic family, being Catholic is normal for you.
Very normal, yes.
But you said you weren't quite sure that you were going to be a priest. I mean,
well,
you weren't thinking about that.
Not at that age, you won't.
At what point did you start thinking maybe that this could be a...
well, quite late. You see, when I graduated from grammar school, and they were encouraging me to go to the minor seminary in those days.
Okay. That's
high school seminary.
Yes.
I just refused.
Okay.
I said the word seminary is too out of question.
But were you encouraged to go there because your family thought that you could be a priest, or because that was a better education? Or both?
That's the other reason. I didn't think I can get good education as the other Catholic schools.
Right.
Like the Sacred Heart middle school and high school. I think these give you better education.
Okay.
And our grammar school was taught by the Marist brothers. So I said, I'd rather become a Marist brother, perhaps.
Right.
Rather than a priest.
Okay.
But then, God has His own ways.
God always has His own ways.
Yes.
So after the Chinese, or during the Chinese-Japanese War, you had to leave China?
Well, yes. We left when we came back again.
Okay.
So that's my first time became refugee. Uh-huh. And then later on, 1947, my sisters began to leave Beijing, preparing to go foreign countries to enter university.
Okay.
And then I became interested to join them. So I went to join them. First of all, in Fuzhou, there are a lot of Fujianese Catholics here.
Yes.
And then, of course, the communists came pretty fast. Right. So I and my brother and my sister, we all went to Hong Kong.
Okay.
From Hong Kong, we began to separate one after another. So I began to be wondering again.
Okay.
I said, well, at that time, I'm ready for high school. What am I going to do? And in the meantime, of course, you run out of money. I said, well, and then my good friend, very good friend, well, he died. Well, that time he was a priest, missionary from China. He said, I heard you want to be a priest. Is that right? I said, well, once I did say that. He said, I'm going to send you to Macau, and there you can study. Well, in the meantime, prepare to see if you like it. So I said, okay, all right. So I went to Macau. After that, he says he will bring me to the United States. He wants me to be Dominican. He was Dominican.
Right.
He's come here and be a Dominican. But then I couldn't get a visa. He said, well, why don't you go to the regional seminary right here? Stay there, see what happens.
And that was in Hong Kong?
That was in Hong Kong. That time I have no intention of becoming a priest.
No, really,
No.
still?
No. And even the rector of the seminary asked him a question. You're Dominican. You're preparing him to be a Dominican. Why did you send him to a Jesuit seminary? He's always wanted him to see both sides.
Right.
So that's how I started.
That's how it started. And not only did you not have clear plans to be a priest, but even this idea of going to the United States, I mean, eventually you ended up in the United States.
Yes.
Maybe not for the best reasons.
No, but still, all providence, thank God.
It's always providence, isn't it?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Did you think, so before you ended up going to the United States, did you think as a priest that you would go back to China as a missionary?
Well, I always had the hope.
Yeah.
But I know that's just a wishful thought.
But what did you think? So at that time, with that government, where I guess it's the same party that's in power now, the communist government, what would life as a missionary in China would have been like? Or what do you think it would have been like?
Well, if you're a foreigner, you'll be expelled.
Right.
If you're local, during the...
But you were already treated as a foreigner because you were ordained.
I am, yes. Even before ordination.
Because you had left.
I have left, number one. Number two, and actually, I never had Chinese passport.
Really?
I never did.
Really?
So if you go in as a foreigner, you're a foreigner. And so that's how. But still, during the 10 years of so-called Cultural Revolution, that's a time of persecution.
Okay.
Yes. Most people went to jail for all kinds of things. My family, of course, included.
Yes.
And after that, church began to open up. They gave back to the church a lot of properties. Well, a lot, I said a lot, not all. Yes, so the things become a lot better. And people began to go to church, and you can see the people's faith.
Yeah.
Yes, I went back to China. In those days, the Mass in the morning, 6:30 in the morning.
Full.
I went for weekday Mass.
Full, yeah, amazing.
And at that time, poor.
Yeah.
There's no heater in the church. People will bundle up and the scarf and the hat and full.
Yes.
That shows our faith stays.
Yes. Now you ended up having to go to the United States because your sister was widowed, and then eventually she died of cancer.
Yes.
Leaving your nieces and nephews.
That's right.
And that's why you ended up staying, because you felt that you would be the best guardian for those children.
Well, yeah, it's no other choice.
No other choice, but again, providence.
Absolutely.
So was it easy for you to be incarnated into the Archdiocese of San Francisco to serve as a priest?
Well, actually, I didn't want to.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you didn't want to do.
No. There's a bishop, Jin, from China. He was in prison for 23 years. He was let out, and then he went to San Francisco. When he got out, he didn't even know who the Pope was.
Really?
Never mind about Vatican II Council.
Wow.
But within 6 months, he knew more than Vatican Council than most priests in San Francisco. He says, try to be incarnated. I said, why? I said, I feel the same thing. I work the same thing. I can, He said, yeah. He said, I know the same thing. Canon law-wise, you're okay.
Right.
But people's impression, they don't think you're going to stay. They cannot really trust you.
Really?
Yeah. Be incarnated.
So, but did you think, or did he think maybe that because there was such a large Catholic Chinese community in San Francisco, that they could use your help?
Actually, they saw my influence in the archdiocese.
Because you were a canon lawyer?
Yes.
Yes.
And the relationship with the bishop is pretty good and all that.
Okay.
He says, this is a great thing.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, the bishop may trust you with personal board and all that. They know you're not incarnated. They can't.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, all right. Then I see what happens. So I wrote a petition. Oh, the chancellor, his office is 2 doors from mine.
Mm-hmm.
He came, oh, you're going to be incarnated? I said, well, that's my wish. Oh, good. And then he says, the problem is, who is going to excarnate you?
Yeah.
I said, nobody. Because I'm not really strictly incarnating any diocese. Rome.
Yes.
So he went to Rome.
That's great.
And answer came back. He ran to my office. Hey, approved. He says, you want to swear? I said, do you have a Bible? I said, I have one in Chinese. That's fine. Take it here. So he swore me in right there.
That's great.
It was so easy and so happy.
Yes.
Again, it was providential.
Yes, again. So you ended up being the first Archdiocesan Director of the Office of Chinese Catholic Ministry. You end up instituting the ritual blessing of ancestors, which is, I guess, a traditional thing for Chinese people. The annual Archdiocesan Chinese New Year's Mass. You even became the first Chinese Catholic pastor in San Francisco, and then you went off to work in the marriage tribunal, and you were the coordinator of the Chinese apostolate. So you got around. We're going to take a little break, though, Bishop. But when I come back, we're going to continue this conversation. I'm speaking with Auxiliary Bishop Emeritus Ignatius Wang of San Francisco about his experiences as the very first Chinese bishop in the United States. So don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back. We're speaking with Bishop Ignatius Wang. He's a retired auxiliary bishop of San Francisco about his experiences as the very first Chinese bishop in the United States. So Pope John Paul II, St. John Paul II, appointed you as the first Chinese bishop in the United States. What do you think was the significance of that? Was it long coming that we had a Chinese bishop in the United States, or was it the right time?
You see, as I said, to be a bishop, you have to be a priest first.
Yes.
To be a priest, you have to be a seminarian first. There's no Chinese seminarian.
Right.
How can you be a Chinese bishop?
Yes.
I just have to encourage Chinese vocations. So far in San Francisco, we only have one locally born Chinese just ordained this year.
Right.
And this is very, very poor. How do you expect to have more bishops? What you say, there has to be a Chinese bishop. Well, it's a good thing, but that can't happen overnight.
No.
We have to train young people with their vocations. And then gradually, in the future, there'll be more Chinese bishops.
But is the Chinese community in San Francisco, the Catholic Chinese community, are they very strong in their faith? Or is it like most communities?
No, some of them are very strong, actually. And especially in the South Bay, they're really, really, really strong. And they really believe Mass. And in Los Angeles area, some of them will fly a priest over every weekend to see Sunday Mass. And one of the priests was surprised. You pay all of that back and forth and pay my stipend? He said, well, it's worth it. See, that tells you how strong their faith is.
Right.
How come there's no vocation? Well, that question you ask generally.
Everybody.
Generally, there's a lack of vocation.
Yes.
We talk about China's during the 10 years revolution. People suffered a lot, but people were fervent. But now, who said this? Another Belgian priest, Father Hendricks. He said the communists tried their best to attack the church, didn't do anything to it. Materialism.
I've heard that, and I was going to ask you because I've heard stories about that people, because the church is persecuted in China, people are very strong in their faith, but because it's not persecuted in North America, people are very relaxed about their faith.
Consumerism.
Well, that's a challenge.
That's a challenge.
Would you say that that's the main challenge that you would have had as bishop for an ethnic community?
I think that's one of them. They're just too materialistic. They don't think about, you go to church now, you see empty pews.
Right.
When I say the Mass of the Chinese martyrs on Sunday.
In Toronto, in the Archdiocese of Toronto.
Just last Sunday.
Yes.
I was so surprised. The church was full, upstairs too.
Full.
I have not seen church full of people like that in San Francisco for a long time.
Really? Sundays,
here, there, and a few scattered. So they try to reduce Mass. Well, of course, they have to reduce Mass. So this is a really sad thing, generally. And another problem nowadays, people avoid having children.
Right.
Yeah, so we have to really encourage those things. But again, this is really
interesting. So in China, where I guess it's changed, but then when they were limited to having 2 children, but in the States, they're not limited and they're not having children.
Quite.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. I find that fascinating that I mean, I'm not going to say this, but in a way, you talk about providence. So maybe even the persecution sometimes is providence because it strengthens people's faith.
Well, you study the church history from the beginning of their persecution.
Yeah, yes.
And once I remember when I was in the mission, I was having a meeting with the ministers of government, and all of a sudden one of them says, "Father, I used to be a Catholic, but seeing the Catholic Church, I can't be, so I'm now a Protestant." I said, on the contrary, seeing the church like that, we still stand. Therefore, we depend on Holy Spirit, not human beings. Always, I never thought of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for people that are maybe wondering how it works, I've heard that there's the patriotic church or the official government state church and the underground church. How does that work?
Well,
in China?
This is the problem I hear all over. They think the 2 separate churches in China, but in the Catholic Church, there's only one. There are not 2 churches.
So there aren't 2 sets of bishops?
Well, if you go into details, you see in China now, most of the bishops are appointed by both government and the Vatican.
So the government will accept Vatican-appointed bishops if the government appoints them also?
Well, they're still talking about that. Well, yes. And strange enough, it all happened simultaneously. But how?
Providentially, they're appointing the same people?
Yes.
Okay.
In other words, they've been talking all the time.
So if I was visiting Beijing, let's say, and I could go to Mass on Sunday in a Catholic church.
I do.
You do?
I do, yes.
And that Mass is the same Mass as if I went?
Absolutely.
And it's a valid Mass?
Absolutely.
And those priests are ordained?
Absolutely.
But are there some people who don't go to that Mass, but maybe do Mass at home? And
yes.
And are those priests, I guess they're also ordained and it's a valid Mass?
Yes.
So is it because some of the people feel that they don't want to support anything that the government is supporting?
Yes. And they think those patriotic association do not follow the Pope. We're under the Pope, they're not.
Okay.
They're under the government. But this is not true, because I see they follow the Pope step by step.
Okay.
And I went to various churches on Sundays. I can see, for example, the prayer of the faithful.
Mm-hmm.
The first prayer is always, let us pray for our Holy Father, the Pope, and mention the name, where the name was.
Right.
I said, well, back in San Francisco, I'm not sure if every church does that.
Right.
The canon of the Mass, same thing.
They would pray
They
for the
always say
Holy
the Pope's name,
Yeah.
but bishop names, some do, some
Not always.
don't. You
Not
see?
always. So what would the government be concerned about with allowing, I guess, freedom of religion?
Well, they don't call it religion. They call it Western culture.
Okay.
You're bringing in the Western culture.
So if you're practicing a Western religion, that would
That's
be bringing
right.
in Western culture.
That's right.
And that is a threat to the Chinese culture?
That's correct. They say, we have our own religion, Buddhism. I said, wait a minute. Buddhism came from India. It's not Chinese. You see?
Yes.
Oh, we changed that into Chinese.
Interesting.
So same thing with the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Now, and as country to country or state to state, China-Vatican, what are those relations like? Is there a nuncio?
No,
There's no nuncio.
not official, no.
No.
There's a observer in Hong Kong. Yes.
In Hong Kong?
Yes.
Okay.
He is, well, he brings, messages back and forth, and he does the talking, and it was a lot of ways of contacting each other.
Okay.
So they're doing that, I believe.
So there's behind the scenes
Yes.
negotiations or
Yeah,
conversations?
therefore we're not supposed to know that, but it happens. Everyone knows.
Yes. And they've been happening always?
Just
more
about.
now?
Just about. Yes.
Are they happening more now with Pope Francis, or do you think?
No, I don't think so, because you can go only that far. So.
And what sorts of, if you, I mean, obviously freedom of religion for everyone would be the ideal, but do you see that there can be a compromise, or what would that perfect situation look like?
Well, on earth, there's no such a thing as a perfect situation.
Yes.
Therefore, there's always something, and they were just, some people are too optimistic, I think. They believe the Vatican will be recognizing China, each other, diplomatic. I don't think that will happen overnight.
No.
I don't think I will see that in my lifetime.
So not anytime soon.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But that's the way it goes. Well, we just have to take and give. There's no absolutely win-win situation.
Do you see the church in China as an oppressed church?
Well, not more than any other religion or groups. See, the other groups, they're kind of under oppression too. And you start something, some movement, some new youth rally and all that, they all be watched by government very closely. Therefore, when I go to China, on Sunday I go to church, I usually call the church first, I'm going to come to Mass. Oh, would you say Mass for us?
Right.
This happened once, quite some time ago, in Shanghai. In Shanghai, there's one they call International Church, St. Francis Xavier. They called me, would you come to say Mass in English for us, because they have all kinds of language Mass over there. I said, sure, I would. Then he called the bishop. He said, I'm asking Bishop Wang to come say Mass for us here. He said, no way. It's on Easter Sunday. No way. He should come to the cathedral.
That's great.
And I went there. He put a mitre on my head. He put a crosier in my hand.
Really?
Yes.
So that's your experience.
In Shanghai, yes.
You're giving us hope. Thank you.
lot of hope.
Yes, good.
Yes.
That's a very Catholic thing. That's
Yes.
good as a bishop for giving us hope. Thank you for sharing a little bit about your story and your wisdom with us. You were a bishop for 15 years. You've been retired now for 8. So I hope that you're enjoying your retirement, and I hope that you can visit us again soon.
Oh, very much. Yes, thank you.
I've been speaking with Bishop Ignatius Wang. He's a retired auxiliary bishop of San Francisco, the very first Chinese, not only the very first Chinese bishop in the United States, but the very first Asian bishop in the United States. You heard from him, you heard his thoughts and his experiences about the church in China. Maybe you want to comment as well. Send us your comments via social media, Facebook or Twitter. You can also write to us, perspectives@saltandlighttv.org. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next time.